In the previous video, we talked about why muscle is one of the biggest determinants of your lifespan after 60. Today, we're going one step further. What exactly is happening to our muscles as we get older? Because one of the biggest myths about aging is that muscle simply shrinks. It doesn't. Something more interesting is happening. Have you ever noticed that you don't necessarily look dramatically different, yet opening a heavy door feels harder, carrying groceries feel heavier, getting out of a low chair takes a little more effort? That isn't your imagination. And over the past 2 decades, researchers have discovered something that has changed the way doctors think about muscle aging. For many years, doctors thought the biggest problem was simply losing muscle mass. The medical name for this is sarcopenia. As we get older, we gradually lose muscle tissue, particularly if we are inactive, become ill, eat poorly, or spend long periods sitting. That certainly matters. But then, researchers began asking a different question. If two older people have a similar amount of muscle, why can one of them still climb stairs easily while the other struggles to stand up from a chair? The answer came from a landmark American study published in 2006. Researchers followed more than 1,800 older adults aged 70 to 79 years of age for 3 years, carefully measuring both muscle mass and muscle strength. What they discovered changed the way we think about muscle aging now. Muscle strength declined about 3 times faster than muscle mass. I'll repeat that. Muscle strength declined 3 times faster than muscle mass. In other words, aging doesn't just shrink muscle, it changes what your muscle can do. And that changed the conversation. So here is a graph showing muscle mass across the adult life. You can see the decline, especially marked after the age of 50. A second paper from that same study published that same year looked at an even bigger question. Which matters more as we age? How much muscle we have, or what that muscle can actually do? The answer was clear. Muscle strength. Muscle strength is the one that predicted future health better than muscle size alone. So put simply, what your muscles can do matters more than how much muscle you have. This graph shows muscle mass decline throughout adult life, but it superimposed on it shows in the red line shows the muscle strength decline with age. At the same time, you can see how much bigger muscle strength decline than muscle mass. Since then, international expert groups across the world have updated how doctors diagnose sarcopenia. Both the Asian Working Group for Sarcopenia and the Australian and New Zealand consensus now recommend looking beyond muscle size alone. They emphasize muscle strength together with muscle quantity and physical performance, because these tell us much more how well a person is likely to function in everyday life. So, what exactly is sarcopenia? Today, doctors think of sarcopenia as age-related loss of muscle strength together with reduced muscle quantity or quality, and eventually declining in physical performance. So it isn't simply smaller muscles. Aging doesn't just shrink muscle, it changes what your muscle can do. It is not just less muscle, but less useful muscle. So in this series, you'll hear me use the phrase useful muscle. By that, I mean muscle that is strong enough to get you out of your chair, carry your groceries, climb the stairs, recover after illness, catch yourself when you stumble, and help you stay independent. And after 60, 70, 80, and beyond, that's the muscle that really matters. In the previous video, I briefly mentioned three, three age-related changes that often go together. Less muscle, less strength, less bone. Sarcopenia, dynapenia, and osteopenia. Think of these as three pillars that progressively leads towards frailty. Today, we're mainly talking about the first two. Sarcopenia is losing muscle. Dynapenia is losing strength. Interestingly, as we saw earlier, strength declines even faster, 3 times faster than muscle mass as we age. So why does this happen? This isn't one single cause. As we age, we gradually lose motor nerve cells, so fewer muscle fibers receive nerve signals. Fast twitch muscle fibers, the fibers we rely on to climb stairs quickly, stand up rapidly, or catch ourselves when we trip, they gradually shrink. We also become less responsive to exercise and dietary protein, something called anabolic resistance. Add illness, inactivity, chronic disease, poor nutrition, and sometimes medications, and the process accelerates. None of these happen overnight. It happens quietly year after year, which is exactly why many people don't notice it until everyday tasks suddenly become harder. The encouraging news is that this process is not completely one way. Aging changes muscle, but aging does not stop muscle adapting. That's the good news. Even in our 80s and beyond, muscle continues responding remarkably well when we challenge it appropriately. That's one of the reasons I find muscle such an optimistic area of medicine. Unlike many aspects of aging, muscle remains surprisingly trainable. And that brings us to the obvious question. If you can still build stronger, more useful muscle after 60, what is the best way to do it? That's exactly where we are going next. So in the next video, we'll look at resistance training after 60, what it should really look like, how it differs from training at 30, and why the goal isn't simply lifting heavier and heavier weights. It's building muscle that helps protect your health span. Because after 60, muscle isn't simply about size. It's about strength, it's about function, it's about reserve, and ultimately, it's about keeping the freedom to keep living the life you choose.